Well, hello and welcome to the Jammin Jukebox radio show. I am your host, DJ Delta Dawn, and I am so glad to be here with you. It is Hump Day, folks, and you know what that means. That means that we are just 2 days away from the weekend, and it being Friday. Tomorrow is Friday Eve. I don't even call Thursdays Thursday anymore because we get too close to the weekend to call them anything else. And as you know, the holidays around the corner. Can you believe that 2 weeks from tomorrow we're going to be celebrating Thanksgiving? I mean, it was just like Halloween a week ago, it seems like. So yeah, time is really inching by, and but I am thrilled that you're here tonight. Thank you so much for joining us, and for all the brand new listeners out there, welcome aboard. You picked a great night. We have a phenomenal guest, and I want to give you a little bit of background on her. If you ever bump into our special guest, you might find her armed with a macro lens, an incredible eye for detail, and a truly groundbreaking vision. Her guitar art is taking the world of fine art photography on a rock and roll ride. Far from still life, her work conjures the abstract, yet also possesses a very sensual and ethereal feel that intentionally illustrates the intimate wear and tear details of the instrument. Her unique presentation undoubtedly personifies the musician and captures their true spirit in these wooden extensions of their own iconic flesh. Her debut book, entitled 108 RockStar Guitars, is just released, and the foreword was penned by the legendary guitarist Les Paul. Our guest has photographed some of the world's biggest and best guitar players, such as Les Paul, Eric Clapton, Jimmy Page, Nancy Wilson, Bonnie Raitt, Chrissie Hynde, among many others. We are so excited and honored to welcome photographer and author Lisa Johnson. Hello, Lisa.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing just great. Thanks for the nice intro.
Oh, well, thank you, and I appreciate you being here. And, oh, my gosh, when I first found out about you and your book, I was so excited. First of all, I love photography. I love pictures, but this was such an interesting project. I mean, wow, congratulations on the book. I know that has been quite a feat in the works for some time.
Yes, it sure has. Of course, I had my career that I was doing in between starting this project. So I worked for the Eastman Kodak for 10 years, and then I owned 2 yoga studios in between the work on this book. So that's why it took me so long. I had to support myself in between.
Oh, yeah. That totally makes sense. I mean, you have to do what you have to do, right?
That's right. I had my passion, and I wanted to follow it, but I also had to earn a living.
Exactly. Well, and how does it feel for you now to be a published author and holding the fruits of this labor in your hands?
It feels pretty good to have completed a project that at times felt daunting, and I thought, if I don't get it done. So I feel relieved and really happy, and I'm very pleased with how it turned out. So have you had a chance to hold the book yourself yet?
I have not, although I am just chomping at the bit. I want to do so, and I actually think that I'm going to ask for the book as a Christmas gift because so many of the people that you photographed, I absolutely grew up, loving, and gosh, they're phenomenal guitarists as it is, and just so much history in one book. I mean, I'm such a big buff for books like that anyway, but anything that is full of pictures, and your photography is just phenomenal. And so what a great combination. I mean, this is going to be one of those great coffee table books that when people come over, they're going to immediately be intrigued and drawn to it and go, oh my gosh, what is this? And what a great conversation piece as well.
Well, it is, and you did mention the word history, and the book is actually historical in 2 separate ways. One, it's a historical documentation of all these amazing players that so many of us grew up listening to. But because I worked for the Eastman Kodak Company while I was doing this book, I was able to have access to all of the last films that Kodak ever made for the Kodak Professional side of the business. So the book documents all of those last films Kodak Professional ever made and then transitioned into digital. So it's historical in that way, too. It's kind of cool.
Oh, wow. That is cool. Now, what kind of early feedback are you getting about the book?
Oh, it's just been overwhelmingly positive, and it's been covered by the press very, very well. We just were featured in Guitar Aficionado this month and Relics magazine. Guitar World has posted it twice on guitarworld.com. It's been in Premier Guitar. Just wonderful, wonderful feedback from the press. USA Today did a beautiful piece on it in print and on their website, yahoo.com. It's just been wonderful. So I couldn't be more pleased.
Oh, that's outstanding. I know that really just kind of encapsulates, all the hard work that's gone into this, that you've put into it, and to get that kind of feedback is just a just reward,
It's very gratifying,
Mm-hmm. Indeed.
To have, after all this time, when I'm shooting and never showing my work to anyone, and then to present this to the world and to receive complimentary comments about it, just makes me feel so good that it confirms the quality of the work.
Most definitely indeed. Now, I want to kind of back up a little bit and talk to you for a few minutes about your background, because you've had this great career as a photographer on so many different fronts. But did you always aspire to be a photographer, or did it just kind of happen for you along the way somewhere?
Actually, when I moved to Florida from Canada in 1986, and I was trying to figure out what to do with my life at that point. I was happy to be moving out of the cold and onto the beach, but I was driving around, and I noticed billboards always had photos on them. And I thought, that's job security, because there's always going to be images in the world. Why don't I go to college for photography? So that's what I decided to do. And then I ended up in Florida working for a photo lab that was pretty underground. We didn't even have a sign, because all the work that we did was for aerospace companies, because NASA is right there. And I had to have a secret clearance to work there to handle the film that was being run through for these companies. And so, I went that direction where I was working in a photo lab, and then I realized I was getting away from the photography side of things. Then Kodak ended up hiring me, and it was just fantastic, because I then was calling on photographers and photo labs and honing my skills through Kodak. And then eventually, when I left the company, I became a photographer, a yogi and a photographer, both. So.
Oh, wow, that is amazing. And well, one of the things that I'm most interested in knowing about you is what inspired you to write this book. I mean, how did the idea for this book come about for you?
Well, I was living in Memphis, Tennessee at the time, working for the Eastman Kodak Company, and I started dating the guitarist at church. And my father, who was a musician, told me I was never allowed to date musicians. And so I called my dad up, and I'm like, Dad, I'm dating the guitarist from church, but he also happens to have a vintage guitar store. And so that made sense to my dad. He says, oh, well, he's got a vintage guitar store. That's different. Oh, by the way, if he ever gets a Gibson mandolin, let me know. I've always wanted one. And so I mentioned that to him, and 2 weeks later he got in a mint-condition 1917 Gibson mandolin. So I said, I'd like to buy that for my dad as a present. How much is that? And he said, well, you can't afford it, but if you photograph some guitars for me that I have to sell, that I don't want to sell, I'll trade you. So I said, done deal. So I photographed those guitars, and for the first time I truly fell in love with my own imagery. Because working with Kodak, I was always testing films and shooting different things, but this time I really, really loved the images. And within 6 months, Kodak ended up transferring me out of Memphis to New York City. And I thought, I'm in New York. Every musician comes through New York. And I noticed here that Les Paul plays every Monday night at the Iridium Room, who was key in inventing the electric guitar. I'm going to go down there and see if I can photograph his guitar. And that's what I did. And Les said yes, and I never stopped photographing guitars since then, and that was in 1997.
Oh, wow. And so that's pretty much how you met Les Paul then, I think.
Exactly how I met him. And, in fact, the night that I photographed his guitar, I did not even meet him. I had befriended his fiddle bass player. And so he, asked Les, and Les said yes, and I photographed his guitar. But then I met him when I returned to deliver prints to him. And at that time, I was shooting black and white film, testing that film, a T-Max P3200 high-speed film, and I was hand coloring the prints. And so I delivered the prints, and Les got them. I still don't think I met him that night, but then I went back again because I just was going to the reading room all the time. And so the next time I went, and Les started calling me, he goes, "Oh, there's that girl who does that guitar art." And because that's how he viewed my images, because they were black and white and hand colored. And yeah, I would see him every time I go down there after that.
And what has been your fondest memory of just getting to meet him? Because, I mean, it's no secret he wrote the foreword for your book, and what an honor, though, to have him to do that. And, my gosh, I mean, he is, if not the greatest guitar, but he is up there, and he just, oh my gosh, and I mean, so many great things about Les Paul, not to mention his playing ability is just unsurpassed.
That's true. Well, I'd have to say my fondest memory with Les was really the last time I saw him. And at that time, I had been shooting guitars for 12 years, and I brought a stack of guitars that I wanted to show him. And I sat with him after a show one night, and I said, "Les, you know, I just wanted to sit with you and show you all of these images. Look, remember I photographed a guitar 12 years ago?" And he said, "Yeah." I go, "Well, look at all these guitars since then that I photographed." And I started flipping through them, like, here's Slash's Les Paul, here's Keith Richards' Les Paul, and here's Zakk Wylde's Les Paul. I'm like, you know, I need someone to write the foreword for my book, and it would just be wonderful if you would, because you're their hero. And he said, "You know, I see what you're saying. Call my manager and set it up." And I said, "Okay, I'm going to call him tomorrow because I don't want you to forget." And he said, "I won't forget." And he didn't. And I just am so, so blessed and honored that he did that for me.
I mean, it's not every day that someone can say Les Paul wrote the foreword in my book. I mean, that is, I mean, you just said it. I mean, when you think about all the guitarists out there who own Les Paul guitars, I mean, that in itself is speaking volumes in terms of what, you know, what these guitars revere him to be. And then to have him write this foreword for your book, I mean, that is just outstanding.
It's just, it's very heartwarming, and I have to pinch myself, but this is why I'm giving a percentage of my book sales to the Les Paul Foundation, because he gave me my first chance. He was the very first famous guitar I ever photographed, and he stood by me all those years. He stayed in touch, you know, with my project. I always kept him up to date. I would go to him and keep him up to date, and it just was such a blessing, and I feel so happy that I had all those times with him, all those moments with him, because he truly was a great, great, great innovator in our times, and contributed tremendously to the greatest American icon, the guitar.
Oh my gosh, isn't that so true? I mean, when you no one alive that knows who Les Paul is can't think of him without thinking of the guitar. I mean, the two are just kind of one almost, and what a rich history that he left with us. What a legacy there, and so many fond memories. Well, and you know, that's just one of many stories that I'm sure you have in, you know, photographing all these famous guitars of these famous guitarists, and I'm sure that you have oodles of stories to tell. But what is one or two that have been your most memorable of the photo shoots that you've done?
Well, one of the most memorable ones was I was actually in, I'll give you two in one story. How about that? I was in London, and I had been given permission to photograph Jimmy Page's guitar, and they asked me, which guitar do you want to photograph? And so I wrote back and said, well, I either would like the Stairway to Heaven guitar, which is his double neck guitar, his Gibson SG EDS 1275 double neck, or I'd like his Les Paul that he plays with the bow, and or both. And so when I arrived on the scene, they brought the Stairway to Heaven guitar, the double neck, and opening the case to that guitar was one of the greatest experiences of my life, because that guitar is one of the most iconic guitars in world history, and one of the greatest solos ever was played on that guitar live. So it was such an honor to be able to get close to Jimmy's guitar. And then while I was in London, I got permission to photograph Roger Waters' guitar, who happened to be in Athens doing a concert. So I was like, great, bought a ticket in London, flew to Athens, and there I am, 3 o'clock in the afternoon at soundcheck. There's Roger on stage, commanding the entire stage, in complete control at soundcheck, the entire soundcheck with his guitar, and directing the little group, children's choir as well on the stage. And after they were done soundcheck, I was led back, and I got to photograph his iconic bass directly underneath the wall. Which
oh my gosh!
The vibration of that was super high. And then the crazy thing is you run into all these issues sometimes when you're in a shoot, and there I am in a foreign country, and the power that I was using in London did not work with the Greek power plugs, so I ended up having to photograph his bass on top of a road case with a single light bulb dangling down underneath the scaffolding underneath the stage. But the images just came out phenomenal and so perfect, truly, with that warm tungsten lighting and with the black on black guitar. It's very moody, just like Pink Floyd. So. Oh
gosh! I mean, it couldn't have been more perfect if you'd staged it that way to create that effect. You know, some things just happen accidentally on purpose, as they say.
That's right.
Oh my gosh! And what a rush that would be to just be there in the midst of Roger Waters. And I mean, you know, his contribution to music in itself is just unbelievable. And and just to be in the midst of that. And now, you know, of course, you've had to get permission to photograph these guitars. How difficult has that been? Because I would think your reputation in the industry just precedes you in terms of your abilities and your immense talent. And but wow, you're talking about dealing with the world's greatest guitarist, you know, and not some guy down the street who plays in the local band kind of thing. I mean, this is huge.
Let me just say, it wasn't easy.
I bet.
A lot of tenacity, and it just picking up the phone over and over and over. And, of course, I started this project when we were still using faxes a lot. I try to avoid faxing at any chance I get. But I faxed a lot of requests, mailed requests, FedExed requests. And sometimes you just wouldn't get an answer at all, or they would say no. I mean, nobody knew who I was. I wasn't a famous photographer. I wasn't aligned with any guitar magazine or publication. And I think, again, it goes back to Les Paul. He was the first guitar that I photographed, and the blessing of being able to say in my request letter that I have photographed the guitar of Les Paul. And the earliest guitars that I photographed were Lou Reed, Ace Frehley, Ben Harper, and every time I would request, I would add on the next name or the last shoot that I did. So the list grew and grew and grew. So over time and over sometimes multiple requests to one artist and submitting tear sheets of my imagery, it got easier and easier over the years. And now I hope that this book comes out, as the book is out now, I will be able to garner some shoots with guitars that I was not able to get in touch with, or you know, that didn't jump off the bandwagon when I wanted them to.
Well, and you know, and as you're kind of reeling off some of those names there, one name that kind of jumped out at me was Lou Reed. You know, he recently passed, and how was that for you? Because you photographed his guitar. I mean, I would think for each one of these, you know, guitars that you photographed, that there's just not only that business photography vested interest, but that personal vested interest. Because I know, like when I interview indie artists, you know, it's always a personal thing, and then you see them go off and things start to happen, and you just feel so elated for them, but yet you feel, I don't know, it just feels kind of close to you because you had that opportunity. Yeah. And so does it feel that way for you?
Absolutely. You know, in the case of Lou Reed, we had mutual friends. And so that was how I was able to gain access to Lou's guitars. But Lou was actually not at home when I photographed his guitars. After the shoot, I mailed him images, the prints, and I met him probably a month or so after that. I happened to be out at an event in New York that he was there, so I went up and introduced myself to him, and actually what he said to me was, you know, I just don't let anyone photograph my guitars, you know, and I'm like, I know, Brother Lou. You know, he did it because of the mutual friends that we had. So I thanked him very much, and I never saw him or spoke with him again. And then just a couple of days before he passed, I got a message from his management that was there any way that I could send them the files of the guitars for Lou to post on his Facebook page. And so, of course, I agreed, and I sent them, and he posted them on his Facebook page, his favorite one of the images that's in the book, and tagged my website address on there and made a comment. And that made me feel so special that it meant that much to him to post his guitar photograph on his Facebook page when he probably knew quite well he was going to be going soon.
Yeah.
And it was very, very, very touching.
Oh, yeah, and it's very powerful.
You know,
I mean, yeah,
really
that's kind of like the ultimate honor. You know, they know they don't have long to live, and that was obviously incredibly important to him. That's one of those final things that he did, you know, as someone who knows they're going to pass and have these things that they want to do in those last moments, and to think that was one of those things.
I know. And like of all the people, I mean, he's a photographer himself, and he's surrounded by creative people, and yet it was my photograph of his guitar that I took back in 1997 that he posted before days, like 2-3 days before he passed. And it got over 2,000 likes and over 300 shares. So, I mean, he really, did a service to me, and I'm grateful for that. But it's not even about that. It's just that he was more known for his lyrics and songwriting and his artistic abilities. His guitar playing was not as celebrated as his lyrics were, I think. And I think it meant a lot to him that, you know, his guitar work would be recognized because he was brilliant on the guitar. He was way ahead of his time. You know, he just did crazy stuff that no one would even dare to do. I mean, if anyone walked on the wild side, it was Lou, man.
That's right. And he set the precedent for being able to do that and be okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and be unapologetic about it.
Exactly. Well, I have to ask you about the title of your book, 108 RockStar Guitars. And what significance, if any, does the number 108 hold for you?
Yes, well, I'm a yogi. I've been a practicing yogi for about 13, 14 years, and I've been teaching yoga for 11 years. And the number 108 is a cosmic number in Hindi philosophy and Buddhism. And you can actually go to Wikipedia, and there's a whole page just on the number 108 that really explains it. And the very first page of my book, I explain why 108. Long story short, you know, the number 108 in numerology totals the number 9, and the number 9 symbolizes endings and beginnings and transformation. And music transforms us. And it also, within the 9, are 3 threes, 3 plus 3 plus 3. So you've got 3 trinities, body, mind, soul, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, and the Hindi trinity of Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. And so I wanted there to be a cosmic blessing on this book, and by putting 108 on it, it definitely gets that cosmic blessing and allows me a moment to introduce the number 108 to the world and creates a question to people, why 108? Why isn't it 101 or 100 greatest? Everybody does that. It's used.
That's right.
So I wanted people to ask that question. Pick up the book because of that.
And you know, and it definitely will. I mean, the book in itself is a great conversation piece, but that's a conversation within a conversation almost.
Certainly is.
You know, to have that. And the other great thing about that is it's a unique identifier for your book, because you're right. It's not 100. It's not it's an even number, but it's not a number that we often, you know, the top 100 this or that kind of thing. You know, so it definitely is a standalone in that regard.
Certainly, yeah, and it raises the question, and that's what I want. So, mission accomplished. Everyone asks
now,
that question.
and this might be kind of off the path, but do you see yourself doing any future books that are kind of along these lines or similar in nature?
Yeah. I sure do. You know, when I first started shooting, I was shooting all genres. It wasn't just rock. It was blues, jazz, country. And I have quite a nice collection of artists in those other genres. because I grew up with classic rock, in my reaching out for requests, I just naturally gravitated towards the classic rock guys more so. Plus, they tour more as well. So I thought, I think I'm going to end up doing multiple books. So let's do the rock book first. And I actually have a good, nice start on a second volume of the rock book, and then I've got a very, very nice start on a blues book and a decent start on a country book. So more books down the line, for sure.
Oh, well, I tell you, they're all going to be great because this book is phenomenal. And anybody that's a huge fan of classic rock, hard rock, that whole genre where these artists came from, will love this book just by virtue and literally holding a piece of history in their hand because of, the synonymous aspect of the Eastman Kodak, tie-in to it as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it is amazing what you've been able to do with this, and a long time coming, but I am so glad for you that it is finally out and you're able to, you're now able to see it as a finished product kind of thing.
Thank you.
I am very happy for you. And I do, you have photographed so many different people, guitars, subjects, galore. And is there someone or something that you would really like to do a photo shoot with? A particular person or maybe a particular place, landscape or what have you? I'm sure you've seen so many places because of your career, your craft.
I have. I just really focus on guitars now because the guitars is so much work that I almost don't even want to photograph anything else because it's too much work to edit. So I really am still very much focused on the guitar imagery, and if I were able to photograph a specific person or their guitar coming up, I've got a nice list already going, and on the top of that list is Angus Young, Mark Knopfler, The Edge would be three big ones, and there's a lot of other guitars like Dwayne Allman's, Jimi Hendrix, Kurt Cobain. There's so many still out there to get, so I have a nice bit of work ahead of me.
Yes, and I have no doubt that you will because you've done something awesome with this book, and it is going. I mean, I expect it to be at the top of the bestseller list in no time flat because this is the kind of book that we don't see a lot of, but when we do, because of the artists' guitars that are in it and the history that's involved, people will eat this up. I mean, this is why I want it for Christmas as a gift because it is one of those books that I would look at again and again and again and just still be in awe every time, learning something new each time I turn the page.
Well, it's quite a volume, so it's hard to see it all in one sitting. So yeah, I mean, I think that it can provide a many years worth of enjoyment. And the one thing I really love about this book is that of all the guitar books, you always see a guitar on the cover of the book. And this book, I wanted it to look like an art piece on your coffee table, so you didn't get tired of looking at the same image all the time. And this, the cover art just keeps you going round in circles on it, where you just want to keep looking into it and at it. And it's a red embossed leatherette, so it's very rock and roll, with gold foil imprinted on the front with the designs of the guitar headstocks, a lotus flower, and it's very unique and different, and it looks like a work of art on a table.
I've seen it, and it is absolutely stunning, and it definitely will be a great accent piece on a coffee table, but also a wonderful conversation piece. And any rock enthusiast, rock music enthusiasts will love this book. And even people that's not their favorite genre of music will be intrigued by it and be very interested in, oh my gosh, that's Jimmy Page's guitar. I never knew. I mean, it's one thing to see, as I relate to this, because I grew up loving music and a lot of these artists, and it's one thing to see them up on stage or, you see a video clip of them playing the guitar, but to see it in this format, in a book, up close and personal, that gives it a whole new perspective and a respect.
Well, they are they're very intimate portraits of the guitar, and it's by design that fans can see the wear and tear details of the guitars that they couldn't see because they can't get that close to the guitar, or they get to see the back of the guitar and what's on the back, and how the marks left behind leave the personality of the guitarist on the guitar. So it's really showing the soul of the guitar and of the artist. And, you know, there are other genres in there. Willie Nelson I ended up including in there because he's interacted with so many rock stars, and his trigger guitar is exceptional, and you can look at it real close and see that Johnny Cash has signed that guitar, and lots of other amazing, everybody signed that guitar. It's very cool, and it's hard to get up and close to see it up close, but you can see it in the book.
Well, all I can say is lucky you. You've had so many wonderful experiences. I mean, because I can tell you, these musicians are very, I mean, that's like their left or right hand. I mean, those guitars are their staple. You know, they're precious to them. And to let, you know, just anybody get up close and personal, you know, never happens. And for you to be able to have that privilege, that is awesome in itself. And now to be able to put it into this book, this wonderful compilation, is just phenomenal. So, Lisa, I'm so excited for you, and I know the book is going to be a huge success, because this is the kind of thing. It's not the kind of project or book that we see every day. And certainly not any out there like it, you know. So this is exceptional, and I couldn't be happier for you.
Thank you so much. I really, really appreciate everything you said. Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. Well, I would love to have you back anytime that you've got a new book coming out, because these are just wonderful stories, and all the stories you have, and just, you know, the experience of being able to be in this position to photograph these various different guitars and from the various genres. That is just fascinating to me. So I would love to have you back anytime to talk about any new project that you have coming out, and I look forward to it.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I would look forward to speaking with you again. You've got great questions and clearly a lot of passion about the music. So it's been fun talking to you.
I definitely love music. Well, Lisa, it has been wonderful. And I grew up listening
to Helen Reddy, Delta Dawn.
Hey, there you go. There you go. So did I. Well, I appreciate your time so much. Thank you so
very
much.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
Best of luck to you, and let us know if we can do anything for you at all. You're great.
I sure will. Okay.
Right. Take care.
Thanks so much. Rock on.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Oh, what a wonderful, wonderful person. Lisa Johnson, everyone, and she is the author of 108 RockStar Guitars. And I must tell you, if you do not have any clue what this is, if you haven't figured it out over the last half hour or so, you need to go to her website, because it is just unbelievable. This book is one that you will want to own, because it's not like a book you just can get anywhere, and it's not one that you see. I mean, you know, we see rock compilations of different type books out there that talk about different things, but to have a visual image, up close and personal, an intimate look at these guitars of some of the world's greatest guitarists is just unlike anything that you will find anywhere. And if you want to visit her website, it's 108rockstarguitars.com, and on it, it is just chock full of information about the book. It shows the logo that she was talking about. Even if you go to the merchandise tab, you'll be able to see the actual logo on the cover of the book. And, oh, my gosh, just, you know, I'm such a rocker at heart. I grew up in the era of 80s hair band music, and also the 70s when rock was, you know, in its prime as well. And so many great guitarists have come out of just in my lifetime that, you know, I'm familiar with, and it's just exciting to me to know that she has had this opportunity, and she has put something out like this for all of us to enjoy. And so she's immensely talented as well. So please go check out her website. If you also want to follow her on social media, she is at 108RS Guitars on Twitter, and also you can find her on Facebook. So we want to thank Lisa Johnson for being our special guest this evening. And thank all of you as well for joining us. And again, if you're a first-time listener, if you're brand new to our program tonight, I'm so glad you stopped by. It was a great night for you to do so. What a treat to hear from her. And so with that, I'm going to say good night, everyone. I hope that you all have a wonderful evening and the rest of your week goes very well. And hey, hang on, Friday's coming. And as Lisa said, rock on. So have a great evening all, and take care, and we'll be back here with you again real soon. Good night.
Thanks for listening to tonight's show. You can connect with Jammin' Jukebox Radio Show on Twitter at Jammin' Jukebox or on Facebook at Jammin' Jukebox Radio Show. Check out our website at thejamminjukebox.com. Also, follow us on Blog Talk, where you will be always up to date on every episode as we add it. Each episode is available for immediate download upon the conclusion of each broadcast, and as always, on iTunes. Thank you for joining us.